Greetings, YouTube. Someone just asked me a question about how to get new players into the game. And the person is concerned about, burying them in dice rolls and game mechanics, and that's a legitimate concern. I have a friend of mine that is doing a game that I actually may get a chance to play in at some point in the future. I'm not sure. He lives almost 2 hours away, so it would be a one-shot for me, probably. And in it, he's running the game for a number of people, different age groups, including his daughter, who's going to be in 4th grade this week, or next week, and a number of other kids in the neighborhood. He's a stay-at-home dad. And he's going to be using a supplement known as the Noble Wild from Skirmisher Publishing, which is, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I plan on getting a chance to do that in the near future. But in it, it gives you the ability to play animals. As animals, not anthropomorphic animals, actual animals, which is a really good way to get children to identify with a character, because kids have been doing that their whole lives. Okay, they project themselves into animals and dolls and things like that. So this is a really good opportunity to use that natural mechanism to get them into a role-playing game. A method I've used in the past when a one-on-one game was to simply describe the person that they're playing and give them a character that's very similar to who they are in the real life, but isn't them. In this case, it was my wife, and she was playing a barista working at a mall. Our local mall, she used to be a barista, person that makes coffee for a living, so she could instantaneously identify this. I gave her an apartment in a place she used to live in with a roommate, which is what she had at the time. So again, I'm giving her familiar cues that aren't her life, but enough things that she could really identify with it on a personal level. I then took the campaign into a new direction. Essentially, it was a world where superhero powers suddenly evolved very quickly in the year 2012 or 2011. I think it was last year. So yeah, I had it evolving now in like November of 2011. And what happens to the world at large when suddenly there really are superheroes here? It was triggered by the latest swine flu epidemic, I think it was, or the vaccine or something like that. Another thing I wanted to use, which I haven't used, which is start the players all as commoners, or NPC classes at least, inside a sieged castle. Most of them would be commoners, maybe an expert. I might allow one really low-level aristocrat of some kind, of noble of some variety. And their basic goal is, first of all, to survive the siege, but they get a clue of how to get out of the castle successfully, and they can hopefully go and get help. Now, in the short term, it is go out there, have some short adventures to get help. So there's this gotta get help, because our friends are all and our families are all under siege, and that might be able to squeeze in a couple of levels to make them actual full-fledged PCs. Then they bring the forces back, hopefully, and help break the siege. Obviously, it's going to be a low-level siege, not a high-level siege. But that literally opens up the entire campaign world for them. What was the siege about? Is this one battle in an overall war? Does it mean the neighbors are, So this is an introduction on a small scale where they can identify with being helpless and powerless as real people in that kind of situation. You can project yourself into seeing how horrible it would be to be a kid or a young teen in a siege situation, and then you find a way out, and then you find a way of getting more power and more ability to handle the world, and then the world opens up at large. That's something I've always wanted to use, but I never had an opportunity to use it. Also, as a side note, I've been playing with the idea of NPC classes recently, and I think I've decided that for every decade of life, an NPC gets 1 level. So I'm 47, so I would be on my 5th level. I would probably have a level of commoner and 4 levels of expert. That would probably be what I've got, because I have an eclectic set of skills that pretty much are explained by the expert NPC class. But I think that's a good rule of thumb, so that you're not going to find a lot of high-level people in anywhere because they don't live that long. And additionally, I've always ruled that nobody has more than 5 levels of NPC. You have to move on to you cap at 5 levels. Simply, if you want to be advanced more in life, you have to start concentrating on something that's more focused in an actual PC class. That's just me. So I'm listening. I want to listen to people. How have you got new players, people outside or just on the periphery of the hobby? Maybe they're computer players. Maybe they're into some kind of board game, or they're war gamers. How have you pulled them into the fold of the true role-playing games? I'd like to hear what you did.